Today we are going to create a jack-o'-lantern pumpkin in Inventor 3D version. So I'm going to click New and I'm going to select Standard IPT. I'm just going to maximize this. Alright, so we're starting out on our front view, and that's actually the exact sketch that we're going to create. We're going to create it on the XY plane. So go ahead and choose XY plane as your active plane and then select New Sketch. Now I'm going to use what's called the spline tool, but first I'm just going to move my screen so that the center point is a little bit higher than it usually is. I'm just going to use this as my reference. This is where the axes intersect, and so that's where I'm going to start my spline. So I'm going to choose my spline tool, and I'm going to lock onto that center point, and I'm going to click once, and then move my mouse out, and I'm going to make 5 points. So I've already made 1 here, so I'm just going to make 4 more. So I'm going to click 1, 2, 3, and down here at the bottom to end it off 4. Now I'm going to right click and go to Create. So this is basically going to be the shape of my pumpkin, and I can go ahead and change these things around, but first I'm still in my spline tool. I'm just going to right click and go to Done. Now each of these points that I created I can select and I can move them around. So if I select this point, for example, I can drag it and move it around to different places. So basically what you're going to try and do is make the shape of a pumpkin by moving these points around to different locations. So I'm going to make this one maybe a little bit farther down, and actually the entire height of this thing is going to be 15 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and dimension this. So I'm going to hit my dimension tool, click on this point, and click on this point, and I'm going to make this 15 inches. Now this thing is going to change drastically because right now it's 1.6 inches, and yours may be a different number. So we're going to fix this thing once we've created it at 15 inches. So I'm going to click this guy, change it to 15, hit enter, and I'm going to click my front view again, and you can see that this thing is much bigger than it used to be. So I'm still in my dimension tool, so I can either hit escape on my keyboard or right click and go to done. So either one of those will work. I'm going to go to done, and now I'm going to grab these splines pieces and I'm just going to move them out. I'm going to pull them out like this so that this thing is more pumpkin shaped. So just move these splines around until you get a nice little pumpkin shape here. Getting closer. I'm going to move this down a little bit. What you're imagining is that we've got half the pumpkin here. You can also click on the points and grab these little handles and turn the twist and turn this thing, but you probably want to keep them pretty close to where they originally were, and it can be a little tricky to maneuver this thing. So just keep moving these splines around until you get kind of a good pumpkin shape. Okay, that looks pretty good. Get it out a little bit further. Alright, so we've got our basic pumpkin shape here. Yeah, that's pretty good. So you kind of just want a C shape. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. So I'm going to hit Finish Sketch. And I'm going to go to my front view so I can see this whole thing. I'm actually going to change to isometric view so I can see this little C shape that we've created. So basically we have a 15-inch tall pumpkin. Now we're going to create something called it's a plane. So you're going to choose your plane right here, your work plane. And you're not going to click on the button itself, you're going to click on the word plane. And there's all sorts of different planes that you can create. And these are basically planes that you can create sketches on, just like these planes over here. But we're going to create one artificially or in a different place, basically. The one we're going to choose today is this last one called Normal to Curve at Point. So if you click that, what we're going to do is choose a curve and choose a point. So I'm going to click on my spline here, and then I'm going to click on this point right here. And now I've got a little tiny plane that has shown up right here, so I can make a sketch on that plane. I'm going to do one for all the points that I have. So I'm going to go back here and go to normal to curve a point, click on the spline, click on the point, and I've got another plane here. And I'm just going to keep doing that. You can also click the point first and then the spline. Either way works. But basically you just want to keep repeating this until you have planes all the way around your spline here. Alright, so now I've got a little plane on each one of my little splines here. So I'm going to start at the very top and work my way around, and we're just going to create some shapes, basic shapes on these planes. So I'm going to click on this plane right here, and I'm going to create a sketch. Now, a very important thing about these planes that we've created, if you notice, you can't select them unless you're on the edge and it turns red, or reddish purple, I guess. You need to make sure that you click on the edge of the plane in order to select it. You can't click it on the center of the plane. So I'm going to select it when it's red, and then make a new sketch. Now on this sketch, I'm going to make a circle right on the center point here. So I'm going to grab my circle point tool, and I'm going to lock onto this point that I have and make a circle. And while I'm in the circle right now, I'm going to make this the size that I want it, and I want it to be 0.7. So I'm going to make 0.7. Alright, and I'm going to finish sketch. So I got my first circle drawn right here. Now I'm going to go to my next plane, which is right here, and make a sketch. And on this plane, I'm going to make an ellipse. So I'm going to grab my ellipse tool, and notice that the spline is going in this direction. I want my ellipse to be wide this direction. So I'm going to click on this point right here, and I'm going to make my ellipse. And to make an ellipse, you click on the center where you want the center of the ellipse to be, and then you click again out here, and then you can drag or not drag, but just move your mouse inward and outward to make your ellipse. So just make an ellipse, and we're going to dimension this. So to dimension an ellipse, you need two dimensions. You need to dimension how far from the center to the outside it is, and how far from the center to the edge is. And in order to do either of these dimensions, you just click on the ellipse itself, and then just move your mouse. You don't have to drag or anything, just move your mouse. So here's my first one. Now I'm going to click it again, but this time I'm going to move my mouse out this direction. And these are all you need. You need to dimension this one and this one. So this dimension, the smaller one, this dimension is going to be 1.7. And this dimension is going to be, oh, sorry, I mixed these up. This one is going to be 1.7. This one is going to be 0.75. Alright, good. So this is what we have so far. 0.75 is going to be our littler dimension, and then 1.7 is our bigger dimension. So let me pull these out so you can see what's going on. Okay. 0.75 is the smaller dimension that's going this direction, and 1.7 is the larger dimension. So this is what we have, see? Alright, finish your sketch. Go to the next plane and make a sketch. And for this guy, we're going to do an ellipse in the exact same way that we did the old one. Grab your ellipse tool, lock onto this point right here. Click. Move your mouse, click again, make your ellipse. And I'm going to dimension this one too. So I'm going to dimension the little side and the big side. And the little side for this one is going to be 1.5. And the big side is going to be 2.5. Okay? So you should have an ellipse that looks like this now. Finish your sketch. So this is what we have so far. We got a little circle, we got an ellipse that's 0.75 and 1.7, and a bigger ellipse here in the middle that's 2.5 and 1.5 for the little side. Now we're going to make our next one here on this plane. So I'm going to click on the plane, and I'm going to create a new sketch, and I'm going to move this over. Here's my next sketch, this point right here. I'm going to make another ellipse, lock onto this point right here. Make your ellipse the same direction as all the other ellipses. We're going to dimension the little side and click and dimension the big side. So the little side on this one is going to be 0.7 and the big side is going to be 1.7. So there's our next dimension. Hit finish sketch. And our last sketch down here is going to be another circle. And this circle is going to be the same size as the original circle. So I'm going to grab my circle tool, lock onto this point, and this circle is going to be 0.7. Hit finish sketch. Now we've got a sketch on each one of our planes. We've got a 0.7 circle, and then we've got this ellipse, which is 0.75 and 1.7. This ellipse in the middle of our spline, which is 2.5 on the large side and 1.5 on the smaller side. And then we got this ellipse, which is 1.7 on the large side and 0.7 on the small side. And then we got a 0.7 circle. Make sure that your ellipses go in this direction. Don't make them go this direction. Alright, so now what we're going to do is what's called a loft. Lofting is where you take multiple sketches and you can blend them together in a way. You just want to make sure that you do them in the correct order. So I'm going to click loft up here, and I'm going to select this first circle right here at the very top. And then I'm going to go over to my ellipse here and select that. And you're going to see that these things are forming from the circle to this ellipse. Now it's going straight across to this ellipse because it doesn't know to curve, it just knows that it's going from this spot to this spot. But once I add this guy in, it's going to start curving around our spline. So I'm going to add this one in. And now we've got it curving around like so. So now we've got kind of like a sleeping cap. I'm going to click on the next ellipse. If you have a hard time clicking on these, which I am right now, you can click on the sketch here as well over on the left. And I'm just going to click on the next sketch. So now it's all like that. So click OK, and we've got our shape, basic shape of our pumpkin created right here. So the next thing we're going to do is do a circular pattern, and the circular pattern is going to duplicate this in a circular way. So when we create the circular pattern, click circular pattern, which is right up here, and it asks us for the features. Now the features that we want to copy is the loft. You can either add it here or you can add it by clicking over here. So either one will work. I'm going to click on my loft, and then I'm going to choose my rotation axis. Now you can use any axis you want, and we've used axes before with the shuriken, for example. And if you hover over these different axes that are given to us right here, here's the x-axis. We don't want to use that one because it's not going down the middle. The y-axis is going down the middle, the z isn't either. So the y-axis is the one we want to circle around. Okay, and you're going to see these lines show up here, but that's not enough to fill in the entire object. Whoops. What we want to do is we want to increase the number of times that this thing occurs so that all the gaps will be filled in. And this number works for me. It's 18, and you may have to use a different number depending, because sometimes 18 doesn't work. 19 might need to be used, or maybe 20. I don't know, but 18 should work if you did this spline the correct way and dimensioned everything correctly. So I'm going to click OK. And this may take a while. Okay, so now we've got our pumpkin shape. It's silver, but it's a pumpkin shape, and it's all filled in. Now I can still see this dimension from my original spline, so I'm going to go over to Sketch 1 right here. And I don't want to delete it, because if I delete it, then everything will go away. What I want to do is turn the visibility off, so now I can't see that anymore. Okay. So this is our pumpkin, and we can go ahead and turn the visibility off these work planes as well. So I'm going to click on work plane 1, hold shift, and click on the last work plane, right click them all, and turn the visibility off. So now I can't see those anymore. Now we're going to go ahead and change the color of this object. So I'm going to go up here to As Material, and I can choose a pumpkin color. And there's a lot of different colors that you can look at. Some of these metal colors work out pretty well, but that's kind of too bright. You might want to use the orange. Even though orange doesn't look perfectly orange, it looks more orange than anything else. So we're going to use orange for our pumpkin here. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is create the little stem for our pumpkin. And so when I look at the different planes that I have, like the XZ plane for example, is right here on the top of the pumpkin, but the pumpkin is cutting into it a little bit. What I want to have is a plane that's a little bit above the pumpkin so that I can draw on top of it instead of drawing inside it. And so I'm going to use a different kind of plane here. I'm going to click here and do an offset from plane. So I'm going to click offset from plane, and I've already selected the XZ plane as my plane that I'm going to do it off of, but if you didn't select it yet, you can just go over and click the XZ plane. And you can either put in the specified number of inches you want it to go up, or you can just grab this little arrow here and pull it up until the pumpkin is completely submerged, if you will, so that this plane is completely on top of it. But you don't want to go too far, you just want to go barely above where the pumpkin isn't poking through. And if you're not understanding what I'm saying is, you can see the pumpkin protruding through because it's a different color here than it is here. And so I'm going to pull this up until all that color just goes away. Now it's barely above. So 0.9375 worked for me. You may have a different number depending. So I'm going to hit check. And so now I've got this plane and it's right on top of my pumpkin, see? It's just barely on top of it. So I'm going to go back to my isometric view, and I'm going to choose this as my plane that I want to draw on. So click it, do a new sketch, and right here in the middle is where we want our stem to be. So I'm going to grab my circle, and I'm going to create a circle right in the middle and lock onto this point right here. Create my circle, and my circle is going to be 1.5-ish. 1.5. Let's see how that looks. Okay, that looks pretty good. It looks a little bit small, so I'm actually going to dimension that one more time. Dimension circle here. So I got the 1.5. Let me double click this 1.5. Okay, I'm going to make it 2 instead and see how that looks. Better. It depends on how big you made your pumpkin. It depends on how big the original spline was. 2 isn't looking very good either, so you're going to have to play with this number. I think 2.5 should do it. Yeah, that's good. That's about how big I want my stem to be. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my top view, and I'm going to zoom in on this so I can see the circle a little better. And I'm going to grab my circle tool again, and I'm going to lock on to the top of my circle right here and make another circle. This circle is going to be 0.5, 0.6, somewhere around there, probably about 0.6. So I'm going to make this 0.6. Yeah, that looks good. And I'm going to trim the top of this circle off and this part of the circle off as well. So now I've got this shape right here. What I want to do is circular pattern this around the circle. And so I'm going to go to my circular pattern here, and this is the same as doing a circular pattern on a feature, but this time we're doing it on a sketch, and we've done this before in the shuriken. So I'm going to click my circular pattern. First thing it asks for is the geometry. So for my geometry, I want to select this because this is the thing that I want to copy. And then I'm going to click on axis, and I'm going to use the circle as my axis. Okay? And 6 is the default number, and 6 is actually the number that I want, so I'm just going to click OK. Now I'm going to go ahead and click Trim, and I'm going to trim off all these little pieces here so that they look just like this original one. I'm going to trim off the parts of the circle that I don't want. Hit Finish Sketch. Alright. Now I'm going to extrude this, and I'm going to go down into my pumpkin, and about an inch is fine. We just want it to be submerged into the pumpkin a little bit, so I'm going to click OK.